Welcome to The Fourth Bottom Line, the podcast where we meet people from business, charities and politics who are a force for good. In each episode, I talk to my guests about their inner side and how their internal changes have led to their outer success stories. We talk about the failures, spirituality, and sometimes the painful experiences that have made them the unique individuals they are today. The main aim of this is for us to learn from them and be inspired by them for our own lives. So, if you desire change in yourself and the world around you, do keep listening. And remember, please, to hit the subscribe on your podcast platform of choice to make sure you never miss an episode. Hello, my name is Paul Hargreaves. I'm the founder and Chief Empowerment Officer of Cotswold Fair and Flourish, two businesses that have put people and planet before profit. In 2015, we became one of the first B Corps in the UK, and I've written two books, Forces for Good and The Fourth Bottom Line. I'm absolutely passionate about changing the world for better, and realised many years ago that to do this, we must also change ourselves. The outer impact of people, planet and profit has to be mirrored by an inner change. And that's what I call my fourth bottom line.
I started off a day a week, just kind of working for this M&A company, which honestly, that was like the world went from black and white to colour when I started working for a corporate finance firm, because all of a sudden we're starting to learn what it takes to build a business that buyers want, as opposed to a business that just makes you rich, makes you money, or it gives you an operationally good organisation. I was starting to understand what made a business attractive to investors, and that's really different.
My guest today is Liz Jackson, MBE. Liz is the Sales and Marketing Director at Initium, an employee-owned corporate finance firm, and is a force of nature in the entrepreneurial world. With a focus on supporting ambitious business owners, Liz guides clients through growth, valuation, and exit strategies, while also helping them navigate life after a sale. She founded Initium's Fellows community, the Diamonds Network for women business leaders, and drives partnerships with like-minded organisations. Having launched her own award-winning business, the same year she lost her eyesight at age 26, Liz brings unmatched insight into the challenges entrepreneurs face. Honoured with an MBE in 2007, her story has inspired resilience and success in many others. Apparently, Liz is annoyingly perky in the mornings and very chatty at that time of day, usually on a treadmill at 6 a.m. According to her friends and colleagues, Liz doesn't see a lack of sight as a disability, but rather as a superpower. And I think everyone has a superpower. So we'll come. I want to get into that and talk about your superpowers. But we normally start with people's early years and find out a bit about their background. So tell us about your childhood, your family, what your mum and dad did, where you grew up, etc.
Sure. Okay, great. Well, look, I was born on the Isle of Sheppey, in Kent, which in the shadow of the prison, literally. And was raised in Kent. Mum and dad, amazing mum and dad. I'm one of four. I'm the eldest, so I grew up babysitting.
I know the feeling. I was also the eldest. Yeah.
I think, being born on the Isle of Sheppey and being blind, I think a lot of people kind of wonder if mum and dad were brother and sister, and lots of people with webbed fingers there on the Isle of Sheppey.
It's not an island, is it?
It's joined by a bridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's one of those tidal places.
Proper island. Okay, you've got to make it a destination.
Okay.
I was, so mum was a really attentive mum. So she noticed that I was a bit clumsy when I was a toddler. And that's when I was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosus, because I had tunnel vision basically. So I didn't see to the sides. Very, very happy childhood, particularly, really loved growing up in Kent. Went to ordinary junior school, although mum and dad had to really fight to keep me in junior school, because at that time, having bad eyesight was seen as quite a severe disability, because my prognosis was going blind. They pretty much classed you as being blind at that time, even though you wouldn't have really have known I had an eyesight problem.
So what age were you when... Well, I guess more your parents. What age were you when your parents basically found out the prognosis for this, as you would be totally blind at
18 months. So I was 18 months old and they said, oh, she'll go blind. And I went to Moorfields every 6 months to be told that and never went blind. So, so at the age of 14, I just refused to go anymore. Because it was quite depressing.
And was the eyesight getting worse? Presumably?
No, it didn't change.
Just stayed the same?
It stayed static, which is why school was so frustrating, because they really wanted to put me into a boarding school for kids with very severe learning disabilities. Because blindness was seen as the worst disability. It was a boarding school. So literally fought tooth and nail to keep me in an ordinary school. And then when we moved to Hampshire Education, local education authority had an inclusion policy for kids with disabilities.
Right.
But at that stage I said to my parents, right, I'm going to go to this school when we move to Hampshire, secondary school. You are not allowed to tell them I've got an eyesight problem. I don't want to be different from the other kids. So no one knew at secondary school.
And how bad was the eyesight at this point, the tunnel vision?
So night blindness and tunnel vision basically is what I had. So again, you wouldn't really have noticed. I could get buses around and things like that. Playing tennis was not great. Hockey wasn't great. Because when the ball went out of my field of vision, I lost it. So I became my coping mechanisms were, just kind of fake it, and be quite disruptive. So, at school I was quite a disruptive pupil. And I didn't really engage because I could only really read about half a word at a time.
Right.
So I was, and not great at kind of seeing the board and stuff like that. So I was quite disengaged, but became pretty much, the class clown and,
Yeah, I was that as well for different reasons. But that's not about me. I did hear that you... I don't know how old you were when you did this, but someone told me you stamped on your glasses at some point. So you had some glasses that weren't really helping, and you chucked them on the floor and stamped on them.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I was that kind of rebel without a cause kind of kid. So I left school just before I was expelled. I was going through the process to be expelled. And, I was a challenging teenager, and I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up, kind of thing. So left school, I got a GCSE in drama, and got ungraded or G's in the rest.
It sounds like some of the drama wasn't actually in the drama class, though. It was drama in every other class as well.
Yeah, but pretty much, yeah.
So this is, it's painting a picture. Actually, a lot of those characteristics are exactly the characteristics you need for being an entrepreneur, aren't they? The resilience, being determined, not playing by the rules. These are a lot of very well-known entrepreneurs have either been expelled from school or close to being expelled at school. So when did you discover that you wanted to start your own business? What age were you?
I was 25.
What age were you when you left this school?
So I left school when I was 16. I went to college to do retakes because I didn't know what else I was going to do. basically just bummed about at college, drinking beer in the park with my mates.
Right.
And my dad found out actually that I wasn't going, and just said, look, I come from a long line of contributors, working class background. Everyone works hard. Not working was never an option. I always had a Saturday job, cleaning cars at 10 to, get some money to buy sweets and stuff like that. Everyone in my family works.
So your mum and dad had their own business, did they?
No,
Okay.
but my dad started, life cleaning swimming pools, ended up on the board of a very big IT company. He worked really hard, and my mum worked really hard, really set the bar. My grandparents worked really hard. Everyone worked hard. So I was surrounded not by entrepreneurs, but people who for, the signing on would have been the biggest shame ever. They would have rather have starved. You just worked in my family. And so my dad found out I wasn't going to college, and he was like, if you're going to live under my roof, you're going to work, so you got to get a job. So I was fortunate enough for there to be a careers advisor at the college who set me up an interview with a local entrepreneur to go and get a YTS as an office junior.
Okay.
And that's really where, thanks be to God that I ended up being recruited by an incredible entrepreneur who had sold 2 companies previously, and was just amazing. Really took time to work out what I was good at, and then used that to build the business that we were scaling.
Okay, so we'll come to that in just a minute. I just want to go back to your relationship with your parents, actually, because you're being the oldest child and discovering that your sight was going. What that must have been difficult for them. I mean, obviously difficult for you too, but how did they deal with that? Because this is their first experience of being parents, and this was happening, which would be pretty traumatic, I would have thought, for them. Is that?
Yeah, right? I mean, probably. I mean, like a typical child, I probably have never really given that enough thought. I've got my own children now, so, the idea of having a blind kid, must have been terrifying for them. But I was a selfish teenager. I've never thought of my parents or how any of these things impacted them. It was all about me.
Yeah, understandably so. Yeah. And what kind of what values were instilled in you, apart from the hard work side, when you were? What kind of morals and ethics was instilled in you as a child? Yeah,
so love was really important to our family. Forgiveness. I heard my parents say sorry a lot to one another, and if we screwed up, we were expected to say sorry. Family was really important. And my family, it's like big fat Greek wedding. There's tons of us, and
they're not Greek,
but there's cousins, there's uncles, there's aunts, there's second cousins, there's brothers and sisters. It was and my mum and dad's friends were uncles and aunts as well. There was this real culture of connection and community. And that was really, really, and still is extremely important. And
lucky to have that. I mean, I didn't have that, and quite a few people who've been on this podcast also haven't had it as well, and that's probably what's driven them into starting businesses and stuff. But you did have it, and I think it can work both ways. I think someone I was talking to earlier was from a very loving family, and I think that probably gave him the confidence to do what he's done in his life. So I think it can work both ways, can't it?
Oh, I'm just extremely grateful for it. The fact that my children have both known their great-grandparents.
Wow.
And have, know where they come from. There's something, I don't know, just amazing about knowing your heritage. And like you say, it's pretty rare. And so we pinch ourselves, every day, when a family member does something annoying, you're like, I don't care. They can be as annoying as they like. We've got them. It's just such it's a blessing.
I had to do a DNA test to find out my heritage, but surprisingly, there was some African in there.
Amazing.
Which I told some other family members. It was like this tumbleweed moment.
Yeah.
What? I was actually quite pleased.
Yeah.
But was there a spiritual dimension to your childhood?
So we grew up in a village, and I was in Brownies, and so Harvest Festival was always on the calendar, and Christmas and Easter. With Brownies, you go, and then if you were lucky enough, and you were the head of the Sixer, I was in the Elves, you got to kind of carry the flag down the front of the middle of the church.
Not that I was a brownie, but my sister was, and then, I remember her doing that. Yeah.
So it was that kind of thing. My friend, a good friend of mine, her dad was the vicar. And so there was always the church fete and things like that, which we had Tony Hart come to once.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and drew me a crocodile, which was amazing. So it was, I'm probably painting a sort of Vicar of Dibley kind of, Kent village, So that was the Christian, religious influence. It was more Christian values, if you like, treat your neighbour as you'd like to be treated yourself, that kind of
okay, well, we'll come on to your spirituality a bit later. I'm just trying to get a picture here. So, so we got to the YTS. Obviously, sounds like a fantastic person that was running the company that you were in.
Yeah.
Would you say that what was his? Let's give name check him. What was his name?
Brian.
Brian. So did Brian inspire you to do what you've since done, do you think?
Well, it's a family business. So it's a dad and two sons, Brian, Dave and Steve. And
what was the business? What were they doing?
It was an export consultancy firm.
Right.
And I was the first non-family member. Amazing. I'm so thankful for that GCSE in drama, because without it, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have got...
That was the key part of the interview stage, was it? Yeah.
That persuasion, that art of confidence that had kind of been built. But so he offered me the job, Brian offered me the job in the interview. And like I say, had worked really hard to kind of identify what it was that I was good at. And it took him a while. So, I was probably there for a good 6 months before he worked out that I might have a skill for selling and communication.
Right.
Because spelling certainly wasn't it. And so letter typing, which it was typing back then, and all that kind of stuff I was naff at. So he was a man of patience.
And you could still see at this point. The tunnel vision was still there.
Tunnel vision, but still had sight. And I worked there for 8 years.
Wow.
So from the age of 17. So really kind of grew up, and they were just so gracious with me, because when you're that young and in the workplace, there is an element of, parenting in a way that comes into it. You go into work absolutely devastated because you just got dumped, by a boyfriend or something. And they were just so kind and, but also didn't see my age really. So because I was good at selling, particularly on the phone. So that was really what I did was selling on the phone.
It's a great skill, isn't it? And actually probably a dying, well, you tell me, but I think sales skills are dying because people don't seem to want to talk to anyone anymore. They're just happy sending emails and text messages or posting on social media. But I think any sales background is a great start for entrepreneur. And I'm being biased when I say that, because the only time I've been employed for 3 years was as a salesperson. And I don't think I could have started my business without the sales background.
Well, I think, Paul, you're right. But isn't being an entrepreneur the ability to, get people to believe in your dream and vision?
Yeah.
And, you've got to, sell the idea to people to join the business. You've got to sell the idea to clients to, trust you to deliver a great service or product.
Yeah.
So, you can't be an entrepreneur, I don't think, without that ability to sell an idea.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
But I wonder whether people come to it later, because you were, what were you, 20 when you started selling?
No, I was 17.
17?
Well,
Even younger.
Really,
I think to have the confidence to do that at that age is actually remarkable.
Well,
my kids are all older than that now. I can't imagine them selling anything to anyone at the age of 17.
Well, I listen to my son, who's 14, selling ideas all the time. Let's go out after school and cycle to this place and go fishing. And then you can hear his other mates going, oh, yeah, but I want to play on my PlayStation. It's like, no, you don't. You want to do this. And he's selling already.
He's in your DNA then.
Yeah, I think selling is, persuading your mates to do something they hadn't really thought seemed like a good idea, but getting them on board and off you go. So I think it can start really early.
So let's... You must have left Brian at some point then. Talk to us about the business you started when you were 26.
So, so I was really blessed to work in that business, and I'd been out to America and worked in Kenosha and set up our North American business. And it was when I got back from that, I thought, do you know what, this has been amazing. I've worked for these incredible entrepreneurs who have just helped me to understand that building a business is, I wanted to do it. I'd wanted to do for myself what they'd done for themselves. So, but I was pretty nervous, because it feels like a grand idea, and I don't have, I didn't have money, I didn't have the background, I didn't have the qualifications to start a company. And so when I first started sharing that idea, I shared it with my dad first. My dad was like, do it, you'll be brilliant, But I was like, well, blood relative. Then I shared it with the bank manager who was like, absolutely not. He said you can open a bank account, but that was the limit.
Yeah, that's kind of bank managers for you, isn't it? Not my favourite people.
No,
honest,
yeah, umbrella on a rainy day, kind of. But then I went to see my boss, my boss, and said, look, I'm thinking of starting this company. What do you think? And he was the one who said, yeah, I really think you should do it.
This is Brian?
Yeah.
Right.
I think you'll be amazing.
Well, that's big of him, isn't it? Because presumably he didn't want to lose you, but he was big enough to...
Well, they said, we'll be your first client.
Okay.
So
what was that business doing?
Export consultancy.
Okay, yeah.
And so, I started the business with a client, which was, a great starting point, really.
This is when your site finally went, roughly the same time, I understand.
Not immediately, but yeah, within that first year of starting the company. It wasn't the reason I started the company. But looking back, it was, again, another great, a great thing to have happened, really, because I got to manage life on my terms. And I know if I'd stayed as an employee, they would have been amazing. But the fact that I could do it, as an entrepreneur...
Most people losing their sight, this would be a huge negative, but everything you've got gratitude for, which is astonishing. And calling it a superpower. I mean, I'm imagining other people in the same situation, if you don't all react like this, some of them must get depressed, down, or do they, or not? I don't know. Well,
look, I know they do, because, but my own lived experience is my own lived experience. And others have, their own life, haven't they, with their own circumstances and their own people around them. But, there were so many things that, starting a business, when I look back, had I not gone blind, I would have tried to have done a lot more myself.
Right.
So, VAT return. Yeah, I'm naff at that kind of stuff, but I would have given it a go because I would have wanted to preserve cash. Same with salaries, same with invoicing, same with, I don't know, setting up the computers. I would have scrabbled around trying to plug things in. what I ended up doing was focusing all of my energies on winning clients, looking after accounts, recruiting talent, training people. And, you know, those were all the things as an entrepreneur I should have focused on, which enabled that business to grow at 75% a year for the first 4 years. So,
that is so, I mean, that's such a big lesson, isn't it, for entrepreneurs? It probably took me 10 years to learn those lessons that you probably learned in a couple of weeks. Yeah,
you learn it really quick. And what a thing, what a blessing that was, you know, to have done that. And then, you know, honestly, I mean, you asked me a question about faith, but, you know, at the same time, just before that, a couple of years before that, I'd become a Christian. And I think there was also this element of just, you know, being thankful every day, you know, through prayer, sort of like thanking God for, you know, I just met an amazing man, fallen in love with my now husband. You know, I've got a great family. I was building this exciting business. You know, you start to add up these things, you know, every day on a daily basis, which is what, you know, Christian faith teaches us to do, is to kind of, you know, come to God with thanksgiving. I did that every day. And, you know, once you've done that, you'd feel such a, I don't know, I wouldn't want to be the person who, you know, then felt a bit like peed off that they'd gone blind, because you wouldn't have felt you had the right because of all this stuff you've got in your life. It was such an amazing life, is such an amazing life.
Yeah, but that's such a good thing that can change. That is probably, if someone asked me what's the one thing you can do that will change your life for good, is being thankful and being full of gratitude. Because everyone can be thankful for something, and obviously you're a great example of that. Especially
if you live here. You know, if you live on these islands, we moan a lot about, you know, the place that we live, but I mean,
you
know, I heard the other day that if you eat 3 times a day and you've got a roof over your head, you're in the top 2% of the wealthiest people on the planet. You know, that is what an incredible thing to have been born here.
I mean, that's why I love taking team. We got a project in Kenya, I don't know if you know, but obviously we help people there, and we've done some good things, but the thing I most enjoy is taking other people and seeing them change.
The impact.
I mean, starting with my daughter, actually, when she was 15, I took her. She was probably a bit like you at school, but she's now a teacher, by the way. But the people don't, until they've seen it themselves. And, you know, obviously there's the carbon impact of getting out there, which, you know, trying to fly less and all that. But I still think people do need to see people who are less fortunate for themselves before they really get it.
Oh, and 100%.
Most people who go there do a lot of crying when they come back.
Yep.
Because they just realise, well, what have we been complaining about all this time?
Yeah, and it's also, so we took our kids to Kenya. We've spent quite a bit of time in Kenya as well over the years. It's just such a beautiful place, isn't it? And bearing in mind I can't see it, but the people just emanate joy, you know, with barely anything. And I think that was the thing that really spoke to my kids was, you know, children with either no shoes or shoes that were being made out of car tyres, you know, with absolutely nothing, smiling their heads off, absolutely laughing, playing games with sticks. And, you know, that was the biggest challenge to my kids was look how happy they are compared to, you know, some of my mates.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
They are the happiest people I've met, probably.
Yeah, teach us the simplicity in life, you know.
But that is, like you said, I mean, there's more places like that than there are where we live in the UK, isn't there?
Yeah.
So we talked about gratitude. The other thing that people I talked to said about you, and one of them's in the room, so I can't lie here, was that how incredibly optimistic you are, and not just, you know, gratitude for now, but optimistic about the future. Where do you think that positivity comes from about the future and I guess that's the confidence thing, isn't it? Where does that come from, do you think?
Probably just an absolute passion and love of life. I mean, I know it was Henrika who said that, who's my PA, my amazing PA, who is Finnish. Now, the Finnish people have been, voted or found to be the happiest people on earth for the last 8 years in a row. Working with her, I mean, you just can't help but love life, And I think one of my, I don't think being blind is a superpower, actually. But I think one of the superpowers I do have is to surround myself with amazing people who I feed off of and who feed off me.
Yes.
And I remember listening to somebody in the Rolling Stones give Amy Winehouse some advice, but it was hang out with winners. Now, she didn't do that.
No.
But there is something about choosing the people you surround yourself with really, really carefully. And I am just, I think that's my superpower, is I've just got some wonderful people in my life.
That's it's coming back to what you said originally. There's a lot of stuff you couldn't do, so you had to do that. And most people, unfortunately, myself being one of them, take a lot longer to learn that lesson. But that's, pretty much what I say when people, why have you been successful? I said, well, actually, I realised quite early on, I'm not that good at anything. I can bumble around. I can do most things, but I'm quite good at finding fantastic people to come and work for us, and also loyalty. I mean, most of the people who come and work for us very rarely leave, so they're part of the family, and they're good, and those two things together, I think, are fantastic. So obviously you've done the same. So let's carry on with the story. So that business started when you were 26. Now, you sold that, didn't you, at some point in the future? When? Yeah,
it did get sold, yeah.
How long was later?
17 years later.
Wow, okay.
So it was a lifetime, really. An incredible adventure. I loved it. It was head office in Basingstoke. We employed 100 people. Mainly telemarketers, so probably 80 of those were telemarketers. So you can imagine the vibrancy, and at that point in sort of early 2000s, there were people doing cartwheels around the office when they, got appointments and things like that. It was a really fun, vibrant, exciting place. I franchised it as well, so we had 18 regional branches up and down the country. Okay. And it got voted the top female-run company in the country by the Sunday Times. I've just got so many adventures that I got to do as the leader of that organisation.
We've got time. If you think of any, then let us know.
Well, so when I did win that particular award, that was covered in quite a lot of the tabloids, and I was on the TV quite a lot after winning that, and then I got asked to speak at a few conferences, and one of them was an organisation called Entrepreneurs Dubai, who rang up and said, look, we'd really like Liz Jackson to come and speak at our conference. Okay. And I was like, okay, fine. I've never done that before, but who else is speaking? And he said, we've got Donald Trump as our keynote.
I wasn't expecting that.
Stelios, he was doing The Apprentice at the time. Yeah. Stelios and Dame Anita Roddick.
Wow.
And
that's quite a lineup.
It was amazing, and I knew they'd got the wrong Liz Jackson, because I was like, there's no way they need me, but they mean me. But I'd gone blind by this point, so I was thinking, can I stand up on stage? And I won't see the disappointment in their eyes when they realise I'm not the Liz Jackson they meant to book, but I was getting this all expenses paid trip to Dubai, first class tickets, 5 nights for me and my husband in, an amazing hotel. So I agreed to do it. And when I got there, they actually did mean me. But that was, that was an experience.
Who did you have to follow?
Stelios. So I was on after Stelios. And actually it was really interesting because back then I was about 31 when I did that. And back then in Dubai, they didn't educate blind kids in their schools.
Really?
Yeah, blind children weren't educated. And so to be on stage as a blind entrepreneur in Dubai, I mean, honestly, it was like being a Spice Girl. I left that conference and I had like a little crowd of people following me around, wanting to ask questions.
Wow, that must have been massively inspiring for them.
It was inspiring for me. And I met actually with some people that were, because in that particular part of the world, it was quite well known at the time that you would marry a first cousin, for example. So there were families that would have 10 children and all of them would have retinitis pigmentosus because it's a genetic condition. Okay. And so you would have whole families with a lot of blindness. And so, I think it was lovely to be somebody that brought a bit of hope, to see that, you could get into business and you could do things. So things are changing a lot more over there in that part of the world now for blind people.
Hopefully, yes. So why did you sell the business in the end?
So I'd got tired, if I'm honest. 17 years is a really long time to do one thing.
Tell me about it. 26 for me so far.
And at 26, particularly to grow up doing that. And it was hard. I mean, it was hard, but we weren't a business that had a lot of recurring revenue. You'd win a client and then you'd need to win another one in 3 months' time, or you were winning project after project. So it wasn't like a SaaS company or anything like that. And so it was quite knackering, it was a knackering business to build and run. And most of our clients were in banking as well. And so we'd survived the 2008 kind of events. And, it had kind of gone on from there. So the business was sold. It wasn't sold in the way that we sell companies now at Initium. So it's still owned today. It's still thriving, under someone else's ownership. But I did what we tell our clients not to do, which is, you don't sell when you're knackered. You sell at the peak. Yes. You sell when things are great, when, things are scaling, when, you've got the great leadership team in place where, you sell in a great condition. You don't sell when you've run out of passion,
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't get a good price anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah. So was your husband in that business
Absolutely
as well?
not.
No.
Paul.
Okay.
No.
Just checking.
No, we live together. We don't work together. He's a great support, and it's always been one of my, my most amazing cheerleaders and challengers, to be honest. I'm very, very thankful to him for the support. I wouldn't be able to do what I've done without him, but no, we don't. We don't ever want to work together.
No, folks, that's not going to happen anytime soon. So I noticed in your bio, you're offering quite a lot of support to people who have sold their businesses, and I've never done it, so I don't know, but I have heard that there is a massive letdown when people let go of the reins. Was that the case for you? Was there a big kind of emptiness there?
Massive identity crisis, yeah. And
let's talk about that then.
Yeah, so I had no idea what I was going to do afterwards. And so what I did actually was consulting. So and because I had no idea who I wanted to consult for, I just did.
I mean, why weren't you sitting on a beach in the Caribbean then?
Because it just wasn't that kind of exit, and I was young. Right, okay, I was early 40s, so
you can sit on a beach for a year.
Oh, who would want to do that? Boring. I would go mad. I can manage about half an hour on a beach pool.
That's 20 minutes longer than me.
So I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was lucky enough that businesses wanted me. So I was asked to advise primarily on sales and marketing. So I worked for a projection company. I worked for a packaging firm. I worked for a healthcare business. Just to kind of see what those industries were like. And one of them was a corporate finance firm.
Okay.
And it was when I sat down, because I started off a day a week, just kind of working for this M&A company, which honestly, that was like the world went from black and white to colour when I started working for a corporate finance firm, because all of a sudden I was starting to learn what it takes to build a business that buyers want, as opposed to a business that just makes you rich, makes you money, or, gives you an operationally good, organisation. I was starting to, understand what made a business attractive to investors. Yeah. And that's really different. And as part of that, I was like, can I talk to some of the clients? Because I'd love to, sit down with some of your entrepreneurial clients that have sold and just hear what it was like to go on that journey. Because sales and marketing director is the first thing you do, right? You want to meet the clients. And that was the shock, sitting down with them and hearing that, yeah, they got 20 million quid in their bank account, but actually they were grieving because they'd lost their purpose.
But is that because, you can answer this from their perspective or yours, but is that, do you think, because too much of their identity is in being the CEO or the founder of the business, and they haven't actually got an identity enough of themselves, do you think?
I think it's more nuanced than that, actually, because I think there is, I think you throw your DNA into your business as you build it. So it's more than it's not just an entity. It's not just an asset that you're building for a lot of entrepreneurs. It's, it's actually an extension of who they are.
Yeah. And sometimes when the founder leaves, it because that DNA has left, they sometimes go to pieces, don't they?
Well, you wouldn't sell a business that's going to fall apart if it's that owner dependent. So that's part of the advice and part of the work we would do with someone is to make sure they have got a business that's independent of them. It just doesn't mean that it, doesn't reflect who they are a bit. But also entrepreneurs really care about their staff. They build businesses for, a decade or so, and they're very fond of the people who work for them. And there is if you've got 150 people that are dependent on you, or you feel that level of responsibility, they're probably not even dependent on you if you've built this great business, but you feel it, you feel a sense of loyalty and responsibility. Yeah. Suddenly you're not there every day. And so that can be a big change. And also there is purpose in building a business, in hitting targets and, being the person that clients ring when, something needs to happen, and giving out the Employee of the Year award. Those sorts of things are hard not to be in your life. And if you don't plan for it, if you haven't got purpose beyond the deal, then it's a pretty dangerous place to be, actually. And so when I sat down and started talking to some of our clients, I was really shocked to hear that, actually I felt it was neglectful of us. I felt this was, almost human neglect, that we hadn't looked after our clients. We hadn't prepared them for the event. And so now, probably one of the most joyous parts of my job is looking after, we call them the fellows.
Yes.
And there's 250 of them. And I get to hang out with them, really helping to shape what impact they want to have post-deal.
You just do a lot of eating and drinking, don't you?
I do a lot of eating and drinking and partying and introducing. I'm basically Tinder for the entrepreneurial world, connecting people, making things happen, starting fires.
You are the app.
Exactly.
Is this your purpose beyond the deal then, do you think? What if I asked you what your purpose in life is now? Would you say it's that? It's kind of nurturing those kind of people?
I think it is, and it's probably twofold. My biggest thing is education. I want entrepreneurs everywhere to know what it takes to build a business that someone wants to buy someday, because even if you don't decide to sell it, at least you've always got the choice. I'm sadly quite often the person who is talking to someone who has just been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and has decided they need to sell the business they've been growing for the last 20 years. And then you realise that the business isn't actually saleable because it's got a massive client concentration issue, or he hasn't built she hasn't built a leadership team, or it's entirely dependent on them. All these sorts of things. And I just really want entrepreneurs.
How do you have those difficult conversations then?
It's really hard. It's really hard. With care and compassion. And education to help them understand what their options are. But, to hear that they're not going to achieve the multiple that they hoped would, provide that legacy for their family is really tough. So I'm on a mission to make sure that every entrepreneur in the UK, I'd love people to, when they start a business, it's almost like you come and you do the course on what it takes to make a business viable.
Yes.
So that right from day one, you're building it with those, components in it.
That would be good.
Yeah.
But most people start a business probably haven't got the time to do that.
No.
Or many business. I was talking to someone last night in an event, and him, like me, had started a business by accident. Zero planning went into it. They're both very happy accidents, but I didn't even know I was starting a business when I started mine.
No, and I think that's true of lots of people. But the same conditions that enable you to sell a business are the same things that make a business sustainable. So I guess you could call it business resilience.
Yeah.
How do you teach business resilience? So build an asset, build a business. It gives you options. It's about caring for those special people.
It's about having a good business, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think if you look at that and as a good good consequence, not coincidence of that, it will be a good business to sell. Yeah,
100%.
I want to talk to you about intuition, because it's a chapter in this book, and someone I talked to about you said you were you had massive intuition. Now this possibly is to do with it's another kind of seeing, isn't it? Intuition. It's seeing things beyond the visible world. So would you agree with that? And if so, do you think intuition, because I do, I think, intuition is a neglected part of business leadership?
I do think I'm intuitive, yeah. But I also think that can be great. But you need to be able to, and this is something I've learned, I think to start with, I relied heavily on intuition and gut feel. And now I would be wise enough and humble enough, I hope, to also listen to others and hear the data.
Yes.
So I think there's this kind of good balance that needs to be achieved.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I don't think we ever had a cash flow forecast for the first 10 years of the business. I just knew what would work.
Yeah.
That feels about right if we take on a couple of people over there. So now we do actually have that. You'll be pleased to hear. Plus an FD and various other things. But we do sometimes, and I've encouraged my team to sometimes we have to make a decision by intuition. We don't always have all the data for everything. And I think businesses that are only ever relying on the data actually are less good businesses that have the data and also tune into their heart, gut, whatever you want to call it.
I think innovation can sometimes come a lot more from intuition, and a happy mistake can be, an amazing thing. You think about some of the people you've recruited over the years. Often it hasn't made sense on paper, but something just felt great. You met them on a train and you were just really, I listened to John Timpson once say that, when he's recruiting, he'll walk around the prisons and he recruits on character. That does not make sense to go and recruit in a prison, right? But, that happy, I don't know, not mistake, but the way he's done that because he wanted to make a difference, he's ended up with some of the most loyal, passionate, individuals where you didn't have the CV, but absolutely had the right character. And I love that. And so that kind of intuition, that kind of risk taking that goes with it, I'd hate for us to lose that in the entrepreneurial world.
Do you think it's underplayed, though? Do you think most businesses don't use it enough?
I think that
people don't talk about it. They might be doing it. I've never heard anyone talk about this.
I think the more financially minded people you see at the top of organisations, I think the less you'll see an appetite for risk taking and intuition. So, I've been a strong believer, for many years that you need your creatives and your visionaries leading organisations, with your financial people being kind of an integrator role, or your checks and balances, the challengers, and really, we absolutely admire financial gifts. We employ people with that talent in spades. But I think in terms of leadership, that creative thinking, with the support to make a few mistakes, we need that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
But too often, I think in the corporate world, it's always the FD that becomes the next CEO, isn't it?
Huge mistake. And in government, when Chancellor becomes Prime Minister,
not mentioning any names. Gordon Brown.
We need visionaries, in leadership. We really do need that.
Do you think there's enough visionaries in the younger generations?
Well, I'm always astonished by young people at how incredible they are. I did an assembly last week at a primary school in Basingstoke, and I talked about Mr. Beast, actually, who is probably one of my most favourite entrepreneurs at the moment. I think he is an incredible visionary at 26, worth 5 billion, more followers on YouTube than anyone else, on the planet. An incredible example of an amazing young person. And I talked about that in this assembly. And I do, I've done quite a lot of speaking in business environments. In this school, they said, has anyone got any questions? And 50 hands went up.
Wow.
I was literally gang mobbed at the end, where they were like, can I ask you this question? And now about this question. I mean, these kids were like year 4, 5 and 6. They were bright, inquisitive. And I was left thinking, if our country's in the hands of these young people, we are looking forward to something amazing. But because that kind of news does not make our media, that is not what we're hearing about in this generation. But I'm inspired by them.
Yes, so am I. And I listened to something on the radio yesterday with they were older, they were sixth formers, but there was just so much energy and passion there. But too often our education squashes that out of them, because they're forced down this narrow road, and we don't give them enough creative expression. Anyway, let's not go there, because I'm going to start ranting. I want to talk about your spirituality in the context of business, and how does that make a difference on the day-to-day? Perhaps this could be helpful for people who are struggling to marry the two, because tell me about spirituality and business, and why it's a good combination. Yeah,
so I think for me, it really helps. I mean, God helps me with perspective, I guess, the most. And so, I have this tradition, if you like. I get up every morning, you mentioned it, I'm on my treadmill, or I'm doing a HIIT workout or something like that. But I have got my half an hour. And, a lot of that is bringing all of, my problems to God, where I'll be, wanting to pray about my targets, or pray about members of my team, or whatever it might be. And there is just a sense of understanding my place in the universe when I bring those problems and see them in the context of the world, the universe.
They suddenly get very small, don't they?
Exactly. And a creator who's got it all in his hands. And, that safety, knowing that, me plus God will always be a majority. I'm never a victim. I will always be backed up. And by an incredible power. And for me, that is, it's just, I mean, I just can't imagine not having that, not having him on my side, in my corner all the time.
Or her, yeah. When are you feeling most close to the presence that's bigger than you? What are you doing?
Yeah, literally, probably on my running machine, if I'm honest. But it could be anywhere, anywhere, just before I go into a meeting or I'm in a situation and somebody I know is really distressed, or, I mean, I do end up having quite a lot of conversations with business owners who can be, in quite distressing situations sometimes. And, a quick prayer to say, oh, Lord, can you just help me? Make sure I'm helpful in this situation, that I'm kind, that I've got the right, give me the wisdom to say the right things. And I feel really close to God in those moments. And I've seen, I've been blessed to just have the right thing to say just at the right time sometimes. And that, I love that.
Well, it is love, isn't it?
Oh, and
That's what it is.
Yeah, and doesn't it feel great to help someone else? I mean, it's so addictive.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the most selfish thing to do, actually, to help someone else, because you get such a buzz. It's like...
It's selfish not being selfish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. And it's true, isn't it? That it's you're happier when you're giving away than when you're receiving.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true.
Absolutely.
Someone said that once.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Jesus. Yeah. So, I mean, love and business haven't necessarily been words that have been in the same sentence. It normally mean a visit to HR in some cases. But I do think the best businesses are places of love.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And love isn't always, loving people and letting them get away with murder because you're so kind. There is an element of love being, saying the thing that isn't the easy thing to say, but it's a thing that person needs to hear to develop their talent, or to know that they've got an area that they're weak in and they've got to improve, or to hear that kind of behaviour doesn't match our values and that's not acceptable, because it's hard to say, hard things, to say. No one likes saying, by the way, I'm not happy about that. That's a hard conversation to have, but it is a loving conversation to have. And it's much more loving than to turn around and go and say, that person's really irritating me. It's much better to speak to someone's face and get these things out and in the open and dealt with.
Yeah. And sometimes the most loving thing to do for the company is to let people go.
Absolutely.
It's best for them. I mean, I'm thinking of I won't obviously mention any names, but I'm thinking of a situation we had a couple of Christmases ago, actually. It was this time of year, and we sacked a couple of people, which would, it was borderline, gross misconduct, but could have gone either way. But afterwards, everyone else was so pleased that we'd done it. Yeah. And it was horrible to do it. Yeah. Obviously, just before Christmas as well. Yeah. Felt terrible, but it was the most loving thing. And hopefully for them as well, they may have learnt their lesson, hopefully, and transformed their lives. So we're drawing close to the end. That time has gone remarkably quickly. Not quite gone yet. But what do you think you'll be doing in 5 years' time?
Oh, I mean...
What haven't you done yet that you still want to do is another way of asking the same question.
Well, I guess... I mean, the easiest thing is to say, oh, look, I'd love to be a Ned. I'd love for someone to ask me to be a non-exec director.
By the way, for those listening.
Yeah, I'd love that. But I don't know if I want to do that in 5 years' time. I've got a lot of building to do at Initium.
I think Neds are older than you in 5 years' time.
I've got a lot of Initium stuff to do. I really want to build our business. Our passion is impact. So 30% of our profits will be invested in impact, which will be making the world a better place for some of the most vulnerable people. the bigger that 30%, the better. So there's a motive for scaling.
Yeah.
My fellows program, our fellows program, really develop that, get that really humming, and the impact we can have through that. I mean, I believe, that is the backbone of Britain in that fellows network. Those are the people that literally have the crown jewels of advice to give to other entrepreneurs in the UK. I'd love to have really built up the connections there, and for that to be having such an impact on the growth agenda here in the UK. And I mean, I don't know what else. Just to keep hopefully being healthy and fit, and my kids will be older. My son's 14, so my goodness, he'll be nearly 20. My daughter's 19.
Emptiness syndrome.
I don't think so. I'm just going to keep extending the house. They have their children at home. We're going to be like an Indian family. Everyone's going to come and live with me.
I look forward to that. So just to finish, there's a couple of questions I ask all my guests.
Yeah.
One is the piece of advice you wish you had at the beginning when you started out that you didn't.
Yeah, so there were two things that I thought of. My first piece of advice that I had when I first started my company, because I went blind, I was visited by an occupational therapist that was provided by the government to give me kind of advice on rehabilitation.
Right.
And they suggested not starting a company. And the 3 career paths they put forward were wood turning, piano tuning, and being a masseuse.
Okay.
I am thrilled. I had a negative reaction to those. I mean, anyone knows me knows I cannot sing, although I love karaoke, but I can't hold a tune. So piano tuning would have been ridiculous. Wood turning just wouldn't have had the glamour for me. And I hate touching naked people. So that aren't my husband. So none of those would have been careers.
Right, okay.
And then I think the other piece of advice would have been, almost like good things come to those who wait. You've got endurance. There is a lot of endurance in building businesses. Resilience, yes. Endurance. It's not for the faint-hearted.
No. And there aren't any overnight success stories.
You're Lara Croft.
Ones that you think they've actually been beavering away for 10 years before you see anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the piece of advice that you did have that you've absolutely ignored, what would that be?
Well, I ignored those masseuse. Yeah, being the masseuse, the wood turning.
A piece of advice you wish you had at the beginning.
Which would be the endurance.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, it would totally be. It is more a marathon than a sprint.
Yes.
And also I think the other thing would be that when you're bringing people around, one thing that happened that I found, because I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder about not having a degree at one point in my career, particularly as I was starting to recruit a leadership team. And I was a bit wowed by, the CVs, the CVs that had, a PwC or an EY, background and, the Russell University degrees. I was a bit dazzled by those. And sadly, quite a lot of those folks weren't, just did not live up to what I was hoping I was going to get. So I think the best piece of advice was recruit, expect the talent, expect the skills, recruit on character. And the
grafters are normally better.
Well, not just the hard workers, but the people with... our 3 values are putting people first, pursuing the exceptional and thinking big. Yeah. And, it's those values. It's don't compromise on that.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. We do. I mean, obviously, you've got to look at the skills sometimes, but then they do have another interview, which is just about the character. And, really important. Yeah. Someone, a friend of mine, and it stuck with me. I won't do the Geordie accent, but he said the school colours of the University of Life are black and blue.
Yeah.
You learn more from life than kind of university.
Yeah.
And a characteristic of leadership, there's 50 in the Fourth Bottom Line book. Which one resonates with you most at the moment?
Well, the ones that I need to work the hardest on, which I think is a question you want me to answer, was was contentment. I really need to work on that. Okay. I'm never content. And it's not about materialism. I very rarely want anything. Christmas Day is, please don't waste our money on stuff for me. So I'm not materialistic. I am caught up in ambition for our business, and I will not ever be satisfied. I will always pursue the exceptional. So I struggle with this, contentment. Definitely haven't got that. Patience was another one of the leadership virtues that I suggested from your book that I struggle with. Nothing ever happens at the pace I want it to. And I'm very hustly. I'm reading a great book actually called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, just to try and acquire
That's a good title.
A little more patience. And silence. Silence was the other thing. I really struggle with silence. I like being loud. I like talking. I sometimes struggle with a gap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, silence is probably a good place to finish. So let's finish there. Liz, thanks so much for
Paul.
Coming on the Fourth
Love the
Bottom Line.
conversation.
Yes, so have I. And I'll be interested to see what you end up doing in the next few years. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of The Fourth Bottom Line. Please hit subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode, and do leave a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to learn more about my work, follow me on LinkedIn, visit my website, paulhargreaves.co.uk, or look out for my 2 books, Forces for Good and The Fourth Bottom Line. Thanks so much for listening.